All right, so we looked at the guidelines for delegating, and what we said, make sure that you have all this list so that when you're doing your cases, when you're answering questions, you can refer to this list as to how to delegate, like what you would have done differently if the person in the case didn't delegate properly, how you would have made it better, what corrections you would have made. All right, so now let's look at what's called psychological empowerment. So theories of psychological empowerment help to explain why, when, and why efforts to empower people are likely to be successful, right? They are basically 4 defining elements. 1, the meaning of it, self-determination, self-efficacy, and impact. Now, participative leadership and delegation are not the only types of leadership behaviors, because we looked at those earlier, right? Remember, we just finished looking at those 2, right? Are not the only type of behavior that can help make people feel empowered, right? So empowering programs, and there's a list of them. We're going to look at leadership selection and assessment, formal decision procedures, shared leadership responsibilities, and information sharing. These are ways how we can empower employees, right? And we empower them, you basically will get buy-in from them. So leader selection and assessment. There's some notes here. It says more empowerment is likely when members elect their leaders for limited terms, which is common in practice in voluntary organizations, professional associations, and democratic political units. The example, city councils, as that's particular in the US, school boards. In some employee-owned companies, employees select top management and can vote to replace them if their performance is not satisfactory. So that's part of it, where the leaders select, where the subordinates or workers elect the leaders, right? So they are part of the leader selection and assessment. So they're empowered to do that, right? Then there's formal decision procedure here. Here, empowerment is also increased when the formal procedure for making important decisions give members significant influence over these decisions. So what they're saying is, in some organizations, right, the charter specifies that a meeting or a referendum must be held to allow members to decide important matters by majority vote. So it gives all members a chance to participate in some of the major decisions, right? So they're empowered to do that. And then shared leadership responsibilities. Here we say empowerment is also increased when the leadership responsibilities are shared by the members of a small organization or a team rather than vested in a single leader. Now, one example of this is the growing use of self-managed teams in business organization. The most extreme form of shared leadership occurs when all important decisions are made collectively, right? And leadership responsibilities for daily operations are distributed amongst the members and rotated frequently. Wow. This form of empowerment is most likely to be found in small employee-owned businesses, cooperatives, and voluntary organizations, right? So it's just small businesses, cooperatives, or voluntary organizations, right? And we talk about information sharing, where we say we want to give all the employees all the information. You give them the financial information, what the revenue, the profit was, what the cost was, to help them to be able to have input in some of the decision making. And when they have meetings and stuff, they will at least know. So if you share the information with them about the way the financial status of the company, then at least now when you're going to make a decision about layoffs, then they will understand because they were given all the information needed. Just to share this little case here about shared leadership responsibility, an example of it. So Moosewood is a small collectively owned organization that has been financially sound for 15 years, for the 15 years that it existed. The restaurant has 18 members, and all of them are involved in making important decisions, such as policy changes, selection and dismissal of members, financial issues, wages, benefits, and selection of suppliers. So they all decide on who the suppliers are going to be, how much wage they're going to get. Kind of nice. In addition, there are usually 4 to 6 temporary workers who are not involved in decision making, but who may be accepted as regular members after a year of apprenticeship. Areas of responsibilities are rotated amongst the members. The time an individual remains responsible for a particular job depends on the logical cycle of the task and the individual's interest in doing it. All jobs are open to any member who wants to learn to do them. The members are encouraged to take a turn at every job. Job rotation spreads expertise and responsibility among collective members rather than lodging it in 1 or 2 managers. All jobs pay the same hourly rate. The income from the 15% service charge is shared by all members. Some power differences exist, but they are based on demonstrated expertise and commitment to the organization. Accountability is regulated through internalized values and group pressure. Wow. However, confronting a member about inappropriate behavior is still an unresolved problem, right? So this is as an example of shared responsibility. I don't know how well it will work with most companies. I suspect it takes a certain type of employee, a certain type of company for this to work in it, but it just shows you that it can work. So the benefits of empowering leadership, So they include stronger task commitment, right? Because if you're empowering leadership, then you're gonna have strong task commitment. You're gonna have greater initiative to carry out the role responsibilities, right? You're gonna have greater persistence in the face of obstacles and temporary setbacks, right? Because once you're empowered and everybody's on even keel and feel a part of the company, then they'll persistently try to get rid of any obstacles that may confront them, right? They're more creative, more innovation and learning, and a stronger optimism about eventual success of the work. Higher job satisfaction, obviously, stronger organizational commitment, greater trust in the leader, right? Higher levels of organizational citizenship behavior, and elevated levels of employee performance, as well as less turnover. God knows what turnover is, right? I'm assuming, yes? Turnover. Everybody knows what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so less turnovers, all right? But there also are some potential costs and risks, right, that have also been identified. These include higher costs of selection and training, because you have to interview well. So maybe instead of 1 interview, you might have to have 2, 3 interviews to make sure you get the right persons, right? Higher labor costs for skilled employees, right? Inconsistent service quality, right? Because people are now employed to different things, so they might not be just looking at one procedure and doing it one way. They might be trying a thing since you've empowered them to take chances, make mistakes, right? So you might have inconsistent quality. Inappropriate decisions by some employees, right? Customer feeling of inequality about unequal treatment. Because if, again, You might have a situation where you've empowered your customer service reps to do certain things. So one might say, okay, I will take a 90-day, one will say I might take 30 days to collect what is outstanding, the receivables from that customer. The other one might say, all right, he's become friend with that customer and say, all right, we go 60 days or 45 days, right? So that can happen when you give empowered some employees, right? You have conflicts arising, opposition by middle managers who feel threatened, as we said, right? And conflicts from raising employees' expectation beyond what top managers is willing to concede. So combined evidence from research on participative leadership, again, you're gonna get a result from experiment that was done or research that was done. Psychological empowerment, participative, one second. Yeah, so combined evidence from research on participative leadership, psychological empowerment, and empowerment programs demonstrate that the potential benefits and cost of employee empowerment, while indicate that the benefits are unlikely to occur unless the conditions are favorable. Again, it all has to do with the situation, type of company, size of company, employees that you have in place. All right, so I wouldn't worry about this last sentence about the findings of the research. Again, as we said, the conditions, some of the conditions for facilitating psychological empowerment are the organizational structure. It's unfavorable if it's a highly centralized and formalized organization. It's favorable if it's decentralized, low formalization. And by decentralized, it means that not all decisions, or anybody wants to take a shot at what decentralized means? Anybody wants to share decentralized?
Sir, could it be that this is really decision-making process, several aspects of the organization is involved?
Right. So in terms of decentralized function as well as decentralized anything, it means that not everything has to come from the top, right? Decisions can be made in middle or any other departments. It's not a centralized organization where everything has to be done from the top, right? So yes, very competitive strategy. So we're looking at the condition of our competitive strategy. It's unfavorable. We have low cost standard products or service. It's unfavorable because it's a standard product, and usually for standard products, you want it to be done one way and one way only, right? And whereas with psychological empowerment, persons are encouraged to put in their own inputs, try something. If it doesn't work, then it's a learning process for them, right? So it's favorable for complex, non-routine tasks and unreliable technology. So this works in a lot or good in the computer field where a lot of persons work on their own and just have objectives to meet. Duration of relationship with customer or clients, it's unfavorable, right? We have brief transactions during a short time interval, and it's favorable where you have repeated interactions in a continuing relationship. With a condition where you have a dominant culture or dominant culture values in the organization, it's unfavorable where you have reliable, efficient operations without any mistake. Because remember, as we said, with empowerment, you're empowered to try to do things, right? It's favorable where you have flexibility, learning, and participation. Now, your employee traits now, it's unfavorable where you have low achievement motivation. So people aren't motivated to do much. You have external locus of control, and emotional stability. It's not favorable there. But where it's favorable is where there's a high need for achievement, internal locus of control, and emotional stability. Employability, it's unfavorable for unskilled, inexperienced persons because they just do what they're told without any needing any psychological empowerment. And it's good where the persons are highly skilled professionals. Employee tenure, unfavorable for temporary employees, obviously, and it's favorable for regular continuing employees. Conditions, again, where employee ownership and rewards and is rewarded for success, none or very little, but where employees are shareholders or co-owners and get rewarded for success or failure, then it's very favorable because they're empowered to come up with new ideas, that kind of thing. Employee involvement programs is unfavorable where there's none, and it's favorable where there's extensive programs strongly supported by top management. Mutual trust needs to be very, very high if it's going to be favorable for any of the different scenarios that we're looking at. Mutual trust needs to be there, right? So some of the questions that we want to look at, and you're gonna have these because we went through some of them already. So let's look back at them and we can answer them next week. What are some of the ways to encourage participation in making a decision? And we have those in the slides basically, right? What are the potential benefits of delegation? And when is it most likely to be successful? Why do some managers find it so difficult to delegate and share power? We talked about that, right? And how is empowering leadership related to participative leadership and delegation? All right. So I think you would be equipped to answer any one of these once you are looked over the slides and the recording. You should be able to answer any of these questions. All right. All right. We are now at the final chapter, which is chapter 5. So we'd have done 3 chapters today, which is not bad. All right, so we're now on to, oh, by the way, question 2. One second. Jerome.
Here, sir.
All right, I saw you answer what was congruency, goal congruency. All right, I saw you answer it in the chat. Yeah? Yes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, I suspect you took that from a text or from the text.
No, I researched on internet.
Oh, good. Because I was going to tell you, there's a penalty for pleasurization, right? I just warning you from now. I don't want to make that mistake and mess yourself up, eh? But good,
Yes,
very good.
Sir.
All right, good.
Sir.
And remember, you're going to share the text with your colleagues.
Yes, sir. I did already. I sent it in the WhatsApp group.
Oh, nice. Very good. All right, good. All right, so let's press on then. All right, so
but I think it's chapter 7 though.
huh?
I think it's edition 7.
Oh, okay. And we're at what, 9? It shouldn't be so bad. The contents usually rarely change that much, So we will see. Well, I'll look at it also then. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to be looking at a topic that really is close to my heart, leading change and innovation. Because when I was at Cadbury's, that's one of my main functions. I think I told you guys that in terms of TQM. in and leading change. So we're going to get into it, and you can ask any questions that you have, not a problem as usual, and let's be interactive as per usual. Right? All right, so after studying this chapter, you should be able to understand reasons for resisting change. And I think we've done reasons for resisting change in a number of the courses that we do. So this is not something that's totally new to you. So we talk about inertia. You've heard the word inertia? Anybody?
Repeat, sir.
I've heard the word before.
Inertia. I was asking if anybody has heard that word before.
No, sir.
All right, so inertia is taken from, is a technical term really, but it's now used everywhere. So it's a resistance. Inertia is resistance to two forces against each other. Inertia is what it's called, right? So it's just the same thing as inertia to change or resistance to change. And that's a common thing for most people. There's always a resistance to change. All right, so let's call it inertia change. So you need to understand the psychological process involved in making major changes, because again, you're leaders. So you need to know what's happening with your subordinates, what's happening with your staff when you're proposing changes, and how to propose change. So you need to understand how to develop an appealing vision for your organization. You need to understand how to implement a change, a major change in the organization, and understand how leaders can increase learning and innovation. Anybody who was ever charged to make any sweeping changes in their organization? Well, that's just a process or anything else? Anybody? Your charge was to make some changes? No? Well, it will be eventually. So.
So for me, indirectly
Yes.
right now.
Oh yeah?
Yes, sir.
Tell us. We want to hear it.
Sir, me?
All right, go ahead, Jerome, and then Ingrid.
So indirectly right now, because I am somewhat new to the organization, and I have realized some issues within our organization, and they are trying to improve on their issues. So as a result, the managing director has sat down with me on numerous occasions to ask me some of my inputs.
Mm-hmm.
Where changes are concerned, or about they can go about changes, so in order to better our organization.
Oh, good. So then once you finish this, you'll be able to give them some more ideas. So did he write a new vision and mission and all of that stuff, set some new goals and objectives?
So he's working on it.
He's working on it. You should help him.
So I can't give everything though.
Yeah. Okay. Ingrid?
Oh, yes, sir. I am new to a position, and I felt that certain things that were in place before, it wasn't working well, where I was concerned. And then just having to make the changes and asking the staff to come along. You know, you have some persons who it works well for them because it benefits them in one way or the other. And they don't want to see the change. They are saying we have been doing this all along this way, and it worked. But it's not that the thing is really working. It's just that it benefits a section of the staff.
A very good practical example. You'll see a lot of that when you do change, and we're going to go through some of that in today's class, because you will always have resistance to change. And remember what we said at the beginning of the class, there's only one constant, and that's change. So it's how you implement the change that makes the difference as a leader. It's how you do it, and you need to be sensitive to these people also, because remember, persons are just afraid of change because it's an unknown sometimes. And sometimes, as you say, it doesn't benefit them, but you have to possibly show them how it can benefit them. So you have to find creative ways to do that. All right. All right. Anybody else? All right. So types of change in teams and organizations. You have roles or attitudes where you're gonna have to change the role or change the attitude of the staff, change the role of some people. As I say, you know, you might change a process, and so the role might change. You might have to change a process, and so who was your supervisor is no longer supervisor, that kind of thing, right? And those changes must be managed. Attitudes have to be changed also in terms of if you're a company that has a laissez-faire attitude where doesn't matter how late a product comes in or is produced, doesn't matter how much you produce, and you know want to change, then you know that's a change an attitude that people have to warm up to, right? Technology, right? New technology comes in, right? If to stay afloat, you might have to implement new technology. And when you come in with new technology, what that means, what's happening with banks with new technology? Anybody?
So with the bank and the technology, so right now you don't have to physically go in the bank. You can do everything online.
Yeah, but the consequences are.
Things lose their jobs.
Exactly. The consequences are jobs are going to be lost. I mean, I went to NCB the other day, a friend of mine where I used to just walk into the bank and I was checking, he's the manager, he's no longer there, he's redundant, you know.
I think Scotia was rolling out a full bank where there's no tellers at all. I think they were planning to do that, and I think St. Mary.
Yes, I heard about that. No tellers. Yes. You know what's so bad though for older people like my father? He lives in Claremont, St. Anne, and there was a branch right there, so he used to just go there, get his bank statement updated and stuff like that. They've closed the bank because it's one of the smaller neighborhoods, so they've closed it, right?
Yeah,
So if
JPS has done this too in a couple parishes.
Yeah, it's one of those things. The bank, but for older persons, it's tough because he doesn't, as you know, older people don't really deal with the online banking, so it's a difficulty for him to check his bank balance. You know, he has to drive to St. Anne's Bay or Orchard stuff to check his bank balance. So it's the way of the world. It's what's happening, and that's what technology does. I keep telling people, boy, I can't believe. I mean, years ago, where did we went to Vegas? And we saw a robot making drinks. Yeah, a robot. You just put in your order and you could see the robot making the drinks right in front of you, you know? And I'm sure you guys have all these robot stories now about what robots can do these days. And that's taking people's jobs, you know? And so leaders have to be sensitive to them kind of things, eh?
Sir?
Yes.
So mentioning, as you mentioned about robots now and so forth, even within the homes now, you have some apps like, for example, Alexa. The Alexa can turn off your light for you and do certain things for you within your home that you yourself don't have to do anymore.
Oh, of course. And I saw something on BBC. It's a program called Click. So it looks at future stuff. Go into a restaurant, you sit down, you place your order, the robot takes your order and brings your order to you. It's just how they design the robot. So they design it so it can hold a tray and that kind of thing, you know. So these are the kind of things that are happening. I mean, look how many students used to make their money as waitresses and stuff at part-time or even in summertime. Those jobs are going to be gone in a couple of years, fully gone, you know. It's just the way things are. So it's how you explain the things. Even car manufacturers. Remember in the olden days, is labor, car manufacturers were labor intensive. Now it's robot intensive. Nobody holds up a spray gun and spray paint on your car anymore. That's all done by robots in every car manufacturer. Right? I can attest to that. You know, when I first saw a robot doing work in Japan years ago. Years ago, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's years ago we're talking about. I mean, everybody's a robot now, but back then I could not believe it. It was amazing, you know. But that's the way of the world, and that's what's happening. And you need to be able to be sensitive to the persons who are going to be displaced. Ingrid, go ahead.
And so, sir, based on what you are saying, it's as if lower level jobs are being
Yep.
replaced
Yes,
with technology, and as such, the training and education, the training now of persons. You are training now persons who can solve problems, think critically, make decisions.
Yeah.
You are looking for persons with certain, skill levels
yeah.
when it comes down to helping the organization.
No, you're so correct.
Education has to change its ways.
Has to change. It has to change. Has to change. Definitely.
Sir,
Has to.
and persons now will have to upskill and reskill.
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. You have to do is a part for the course. No, it's something that you have to do. Yeah. So that's what technology will do to you. So I know a lot of the banking people, they, as you say, retrain, and reskill themselves for different jobs. Just what it is. Strategy can change also, and yes, you have to manage that. If you change your strategy for the organization, then it's going to affect people, your economies or people. If sometimes a lot of downsizing is happening where costs are concerned, if you have cost containment and if you downsize, it's going to affect people, and you're going to have to tell them. You have to find a way to tell them how that change is going to affect them and why you have to make the change. It just makes sense. It's more palatable to be able to accept if you explain to them why the changes are necessary. And then we talk about other changes: developmental change, transitional change, and transformational change. When you make almost a complete revolution in change. Where transitional, you're just going through the change and doing incremental change, right? So these are things that we need to look at. So the change process, and I can't do this because of my computer. I wanted to refer you to page 129 about the change process, Lewin's theory, where we're talking about your unfreezing and your freezing, right? Unfreezing here when we talk about, let me see if I can find it. Unlikely, but I'm going to try nonetheless. Ingrid, your hand is up. Ingrid, your hand is up, or it was up before?
Up before, sir. Allow me to lower it, please.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I can't get to it, but Lewin's theory basically speaks about unfreezing, transition, and then freezing. By unfreezing, you're talking about the change process where you have old methods, right? You want to unfreeze those, you want to free those up, right? And the way to free those up is you have to explain to people why you're doing something, why you're making that change. Is it that the competition out there is fierce, so you need to make that change? They need to unfreeze it in their headspace, right? Unfreeze basically in their headspace, and tell them that the change is necessary, right? And then you need to go through a transition where you start to make the changes that you want to put in place. And by doing that, you start putting up a new vision, a new mission, some slogans, all of that kind of stuff. And you start showing how things can actually work, right? And then what you need to do now is once that change is done, you need to cement that into the company because now you've made a change. And then you need to freeze that again, what's called freezing again. So that's called the Lewin theory or Lewin's theory, right, of the change process. Everybody got that? Unfreezing.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you've done it before? Anybody?
Yes, sir.
Ah,
Yes, sir.
beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, great.
In the module I just finished.
Ah, excellent. So that's a change process, right? Or one of the change process, or one of the famous change processes. And then there's stages in reaction to change, right? Stages in reactions to change. So, you know, of course, you know that people are going to be resisting the change, as we said, right? But it's how you show that change can work. So what you can do is start small with small projects, change the way they do something in a department. And luckily for me, as I told you, I was a person who they used to send away for training. So I used to come back and train everybody. So when TQM came in, I was in a department that they allowed me to make changes to the process. But what you have to do is you have to make sure that you have wins. Small wins are important. You don't have to go after a big project to try and change a big project. Small wins, and you show that change and what are the results. You need to share that information, right? So what I used to do is I used to put up graphs on the notice boards. When I'm training or meeting, I used to show people how to read the graphs. We're talking about years ago, you know, where not everybody was educated. And I told you a lot of those persons who worked in the plant at the time were guys who came from World War II, from Poland and Czechoslovakia and those places, right? But they were loyal and they wanted to learn, you know, and so I used to do all that kind of stuff. So that's what needs to be done. You need to communicate and show the changes that were made and the results for those changes. So that's the stages in the reaction to the change. And then there's prior experience and reaction to change. So if you show that you can bring about change, staff and your subordinates will more gravitate to you and believe in you, right? So if you're somebody who can show that, well, you know, I was at another company and I implemented X and Y change and it worked, then it makes a difference. Or you can show the experience that you did and it changed and it worked. That will make a difference. All right, any comments on the change process? But I'm glad some of you would have done it in another course because it's yeah, it's pretty interesting. But you actually have to do it and see it work, and it actually works. So you in your space, right? You in your space, you can make changes come about. All right. So we're going to look at the reasons for accepting or rejecting change, right? Some of the reasons for accepting or rejecting change. So the proposed change, people might think the proposed change is not necessary, right? Right? So they're not accepting it, or they're just rejecting it because they think it's not necessary, right? Why you come about now and want to make this change? Just as you had said earlier, Ingrid, that you want to make a change and people are saying, well, they've done it already. Yes, we know there's fear of change. They probably think they're going to lose their job or whatever the case is, but they've done it that way all the time. But yeah, they think it's not necessary. But if you can show them what's going to happen when the change occurs, then it makes a difference. As I said, what I used to do is I used to put graphs up on the board and show them how our productivity has gone up. If we used to make 10 widgets 2 months ago, now we're making 12. So yes, it's a small change, but it's change nonetheless. So the graph is moving in the right direction. So you can tell why you're going to make the change to show that it is necessary. Or another thing, you could say is the competition. You're always in a marketplace. Well, if you're not working for government, you're in a marketplace, right? So you can show that, look, if we do, this is what's happening. We had 30% of market share, right? Last year. Last month, it has gone down to 25%. If we don't change, we'll be out of business. When we're out of business, you're going to be out of a job. So the change is necessary, that kind of thing. Jerome, go ahead.
I was just saying, as it relates to change, persons are afraid of changes within a working environment. So as a result, instead of talking about changes, show them that if we change this might happen in a positive way. So in other terms, person can come along the change process. If it tells someone that you're going to change something, they're going to be fearful, because as human beings, we're fearful of changes. Sometimes we don't even know what might happen, whether it is negative or positive. So instead of just talking about it, you can show them as well.
Yeah, but in terms of showing them, yeah, but are you saying you're talking to them? You said instead of just telling them, you're showing them, but you're still talking to them about what can happen. Hello?
Yes, sir, but guide them in the process. You're talking to them, explain to them, you actually guide them along the way.
No, of course, definitely. Definitely. That's what I said. And one of the things to do is to show them why it's necessary. So you want to tell them why it's necessary, why the proposed change is necessary. That will reduce your inertia or your resistance to the change. So yes, good point. All right. Some of the other reasons they might reject it, they think it's not feasible, right? Or the change is not cost effective. So if it's not feasible, you might want to change a process, right? And for them, that process can't change. It's not feasible. The department is not big enough to bring in that kind of equipment. Where are you going to bring in the equipment from? The equipment is too big to go through the door. Well, you said to them, okay, we will knock out the wall, right? It's just concrete and steel. We will knock out the wall, bring in the equipment, and spend $10 just to fix back the wall, that kind of thing. Then now it becomes feasible, right? They might say it's not cost effective, right? You have to show them why it's cost effective, And the main one, as Ingrid had mentioned, they might think the proposed change would cause personal losses, right? Reduce pay, no more overtime, lose their job through redundancies, What you probably need to do is probably set up a program for those persons who are going to lose their job. And I would assume that the big companies do that. They set up these programs to have persons attend, retrain. Some companies set up things where they'll retrain their staff. They'll pay for that retraining. Ingrid, I don't know if you know about that from an NTVET standpoint or a teaching standpoint, but some companies in North America does that, right? Yeah. And then the proposed change is inconsistent with their values, right? Remember, everybody has their own values and attitudes, So it might be that you want to change. Let me give a values and attitude one. If we go back to, 'cause trying to think of this one with the values and attitude one where you want to change something, but the person's or the employees, their values and attitude, they don't want to change because of that. Oh, yeah, there's one where you could say the changes, yes, we have to compete. You remember one time a bank used to be open on a Saturday? Which bank was it again? First Global, I think they still do, right? When they proposed opening on a Saturday, when they brought that in, there could be some employees who say, look here, I'm Seventh-day, I'm Adventist. We can't do that. And if you open on a Saturday and I tell you no, then you're gonna probably want to fire me and find somebody else who doesn't care about their Sabbath, right? So that's one where the personal, it's inconsistent with their values. Their values is that they're Sabbath worshipers. So if you said, look, all the banks, none of the banks open on a Saturday. For us to get a competitive advantage, we have to open on a Saturday. Then you're gonna get some resistance there to that change, right? So that's a perfect example right there. Because by the way, guys, in North America, banks open on a Saturday. Now, I don't know if you guys know that. Did you guys know that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so
They're open later than 2:30.
yeah, exactly. So these are some of the things that, persons might reject your change because of. And then sometimes you come to them with something, and because they don't trust you, they're going to reject that change. They're going to say, you know what? He claims that it's because of competition why he has to do so and so and so. But I don't trust him. I don't believe it's that. I think he wants to get our jobs or make us redundant. That's why they're bringing in that change. So trust is a big reason for rejecting or accepting change. And if it's somebody who you trust, then you say, you know what? I trust him. This change is going to, for the betterment of the company and the betterment of me and give me job security, I will stick with that change that he wants to bring in. So trust is very important. Leaders that are not trusted, it's hard for them to implement changes. And then your organization could be cynical about change because they could say, look here, every 2 years I'm coming with something new. First it was management by objective, that never worked. Then the other one them coming was TQM, that never worked. Then them come with continuous improvement, that never worked, So the organization can develop cynicism about change over time because of past experience. All right. So in terms of implementing change, you need to determine what it is that you need to change. Don't just change for the sake of changing, right? Don't just run to TQM because TQM is the flavor of the month, or objectives by management by objective is the new buzz management style. But look to see what suits your company and then propose the change based on what suits your situation. You need to understand the system dynamics, right? You need to understand the system dynamics. How does certain things work? And how does one department affect the other department? So if I say make a change in one department, how is it going to affect the other department? It could be positive, it could be negative, but the system dynamics you must understand in terms of that particular company. And then you need to look at the responsibility for implementing major change. Who is responsible? A lot of times you need one change agent or a couple change agents, one or two or a couple who are the leaders who are driving the change, right? And usually you need, that change needs to be driven from where? Anybody? Anybody? Where in the majority of times changes need to be driven from if it's going to be successful?
Sure, upper
From the
management.
bottom.
Upper management, exactly. Has to be driven from the top. So because that the leader or the top management is the one who will be providing all the resources, because changes, initially you're going to need money. Initially you might need equipment. Initially you might need some new training. And you sends off the person on training, then the person can come back and train everybody else, that kind of thing. So the responsibility for implementing major change must sit with the senior management or the top management, right? Now, the pace and consequence of changes Now, some people say if you're going to change, just change one time and get it over with, right? That's how some people view implementing change in terms of the pace. Whereas other situations, and some situations you need that, right? Some situations you need that, but in some other situations, you need to take your time with your staff and just do sequencing of the change. Do it slowly. Do it slowly. Get some small wins. Show that you can win, and then that's how you would implement change in certain organizations. So the guidelines for implementing change. Guidelines for implementing change is that you need to create a sense of urgency, right? Create a sense of urgency. You say, well, if we don't do this now, we're going to lose the market share, right? And again, when we lose market share, we might have to lay off some people. Who knows? Your team might be included in it. So, there's a sense of urgency. This needs to be done now. Communicate a clear vision of the benefits to be gained from the change. So as I said, show what you're going to get. You can say, well, if we make the change, no, right? We're going to go up 5% every year for the next 2 years, right? If you put in this piece of equipment, 5% a year every year for the next 3 years. And then we might have to consider revamping or, buying out different equipment again, but we would have gone up 5% every year. That kind of example. Communicate clear vision and the benefits to be gained, right? Once your market share gone up, then, there you go. You have no job security again. You need to identify key supporters. So you need to identify the persons. And as I said, you will know them. You will know the persons who will support you, right? You will know your opponents. If you've been in the organization long enough, you'll know who will oppose any change that you want to make, right? And the reason for resistance. You need to know why they're resisting. And we said we gave some reasons earlier. So once you know why they're resisting, then you can deal with that matter as to why they're resisting, right? And neutralize the resistance or reduce or change the resistance, but you have to know why they're resisting. All right, the reason for resistance. Again, guys, as I said, these slides are important slides when you're looking at your case studies. Okay. Okay. You need to build a broad coalition to support the change. A broad coalition. So you're talking about your customers, your suppliers, that kind of thing, persons in your department, persons outside of your department. You need to bring them on. Your customers need to be brought on because you can tell them what you're doing and how it's going to improve the quality of the product that they're going to get, right? Maybe they'll even do some forward ordering and increase and cause your production to increase, right? You need to talk to your suppliers, right? Because maybe you need a higher quality input than what they're giving you. Let them know that you're trying to improve your market share, so you need to make some changes. You're gonna have to buy a new equipment. That equipment will call for wrappers, and I'm saying wrappers now. So for like chocolate, your wrappers are gonna have to have X amount of exposures per inch, so to speak. Then, just giving a broad example on each label or wrap-up label. Because the machine is different. It takes. Each roll has to have, I don't know, 1,000 we call it now, imprints, right? So it can wrap for 100 bars rather than the 50 that it used to be, right? So you need to let your persons know. So you build a broad coalition of support for that change. You need to use task force to guide implementation of changes. So sometimes you need a task force. So sometimes you're implementing something and you need to bring on maybe 2 plumbers to be on your task force because you need to make sure that temperature is at their water. If it's a jacket that you're heating, and I'm giving you a chocolate example again. If it's a tank that you're heating and the temperature has to be at a certain temperature, different from the one that you had before, you need to bring on plumbers. You need to bring on, probably you need to bring on electricians. So you build like a little task force. You say, all right, guys, you are the 5 guys that I'm using on this task force, right? For the change that we need for this particular product, that kind of thing. So you build a coalition to support the change. You guys got that, right? Understand that? Yep. Yep. You need to fill key position with competent change persons. So if you know you're doing a change in your organization, you need, and you're interviewing, make sure you interview people of like minds, persons who have gone through changes before, persons who want to see changes, basically, right? If you're and they're competent, right, and can deal with change. So you need to fill position with competent change agents, right? Persons who are familiar with how changes are accomplished. You need to bring those people on board. And you need to empower competent people to help plan and implement the change. Empower persons to make their decisions, right? By empowerment, you're talking about freedom through change, so you allow them to be able to make some changes in whatever processes that they're in charge of, or whatever processes that they're doing, right? So they will help you to plan and implement change. So some more guidelines for implementing change. You need to make dramatic symbolic change that affect the work, right? Dramatic change, right? Sometimes you might, and by dramatic, we could probably mean if you just want to change attitude, new uniforms, you know, that kind of thing, you know, with new labels of the company logo and all of that. That's kind of dramatic to some people. You know, they used to work in a t-shirt, sweaty and all of that. Now they're wearing nice shirts. Well, not necessarily nice, but they're wearing shirts that are given to them by the company with the company logo, that kind of thing, you know. Well, you know, the Transport Authority tried that. Remember when they came in with this thing there that drivers had to wear a certain color shirt? You guys remember that? Yes, no?
Yes, sir. Even the conductors.
Yes, exactly, right.
I think a blue and black.
Okay, yes. But because of our indiscipline, you know, in our society, I think that has died, and you didn't have anybody to enforce it and keep it going, you know. So with that change, it probably just died out. But yeah, you need to make dramatic symbolic changes that affect the work. You need to prepare people for change by explaining how it will affect them. As we said, yes, you need to be sensitive to people, and so explain to them how different changes will affect them. You need to help people to deal with stress and difficulties of major changes, right? One of the most major changes, persons losing their job. I just set up a system where they can get retraining, they can go through psychological training, call it no, sorry, psychological not courses, but they can see psychiatrists, or psychiatrists come and talk to them about how to cope with the stresses and difficulties that the major change may bring about. Somebody had a comment a while ago? Session.
I was just saying counseling, sir. That's what I was
Counseling. Ah, that's exactly the word. Counseling. Right. Right. So yeah. You need to provide opportunities for early successes to build confidence, as we said, right? Provide opportunities for early successes. So look at to see in your organization what areas you can change quickly, cheaply, and you can expose those changes and make everybody see those changes and say, yes, changes can work, right? Monitor the progress of change and make necessary adjustments. Keep tweaking it. So if you're only making 2% increase, try to tweak that, whatever process that was, to see if you can bump it up to 5. And you just keep showing that trend. What I used to do with this graph, I used to graph it, well, once started with it every day. So the actual department would see every day the change, and then moved it up to every week, and then every month. So some people would see every day, right? Some people would see every week, and some people would see it every month. So you could show what the changes were doing, right? Keep people informed about the progress of the change. So newsletters, that kind of thing. Nobody does newsletters anymore, right? What they're doing now is just going on the computer and sending out a blitz, assuming that everybody has a computer and runs their computer. But basically, you just keep them informed. So the notice boards in the plant, that kind of thing, to keep people informed. I used to make full use of a notice board. demonstrate optimism and continued commitment to the change. You as a change leader, you need to be optimistic. You can't say, boy, you know, I tried it, it never worked, or I didn't know it go wrong, I don't know. But you can be optimistic and say, I tried it, nothing changed, but now what we're gonna do is we're gonna try a different method. And we're optimistic that that method will work and you know, bring about some amount of change, right? So you must be committed, you must believe in it. Believe in that change. And don't change for change's sake, eh? But believe in the change that you're making. This might be the same one. This is the same slide, right? All right. How visions influence change. So when you're changing an organization or a department, a lot of times it makes sense to change the vision. Change your vision so that your persons will know that things are gonna be different. So the elements of the vision that you're changing are, you can change your value statement. By value statement, you guys know what we're talking about. Like you can say a company has certain core values. Can anybody name a couple since we're at it? Are
Integrity.
good core values for a company?
Integrity.
Integrity. Yes, there's many of them. Go ahead, next. Anybody else?
Respect.
Sir, loyalty.
Loyalty. Respect, yes.
We also have customer friendly, sir.
Yes. Well, for customer friendly, you can call it customer centric. These are buzzwords now, you know, customer centric. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So you can change up your value statements. What about slogans? Some companies have some slogans, right? You know, anybody know any slogan?
Yes,
Popular
sir.
slogan?
Nobody
Yes,
does it
go ahead.
better.
Yes, that's one. Next. Give me
Pure
another.
purified water.
Huh?
Pure purified water.
That's not necessarily a slogan.
Sir, that's a company slogan.
Purified water.
Yes, sir.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other
We
slogans?
have bigger, better network. Which one is that?
There you
Digital?
go. Yes, bigger, better network. That's digital. Everybody knows that. Is that digital or flow? I don't know. But anyways,
So
it's a
digital.
slogan that people are familiar with. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, so those are slogans. So you can change those, you know, to make people say that change is happening, you know. You can change it.
Sir, watch, star, click.
Huh? Watch, star, click, exactly.
Click.
Yes, there you go. That's it. So you change all of those things and you put them out there. So your employees and your customers as well as your suppliers will see that there are new changes coming, right? Yeah. Strategic objective, you can change your strategic objectives. You can move from being a company that I don't know, sold widgets to now you're now a value-added company, so to speak. That kind of thing. Your project objectives, you can have different projects and you just change your objectives for each project, right? To let people see that things are changing in the environment in which they operate. So guidelines for developing a vision. So the decision rules in the normative decision model. Again, normative, you're now trying to change things. You're mediating, you're coming in and changing things. So some of the guidelines are when decision is important and subordinates possess relevant information that the leader doesn't have, an autocratic decision is not applicable because an important decision would be made without all the relevant information available. So it's almost like the same thing that we did earlier in the different types of leadership, but it's the same thing when we're talking about making changes, right? When the decision is important and the subordinate do not share the leader's concern for the task or goal, right? A group decision is not appropriate because these procedures would give too much influence over an important decision to uncooperative or even hostile people. I'm looking at one if this was the same one that we, yeah, influence change, right? And when the decision quality is important, the decision problem is unstructured. It kind of looks like the same thing that we went through earlier. It was for a different topic. Let me see this. All right, so we won't have to go through this because it's almost the same thing as that which we looked at earlier. Let's look at collective learning and innovation. Again, I would have wanted to go to page 147 here, but the way this text is structured, I can't toggle back and forth. So you can have internal creation of knowledge, and that comes from persons who have experience, persons who know what it is that they need to do. They can write manuals, they can write papers and share that knowledge with everybody. And that's internal creation of new knowledge. And if it's something that is a new process, then they can write up that new process. I used to have to write a lot of procedures, new procedures, when the old ones were outdated, right? And then there's external acquisition of new knowledge. You can go outside and you can look at papers that were written in the same field. You can look at industry standards. You can look at benchmarking. You guys know benchmarking, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So you can benchmark against other companies, right, with new knowledge and say, okay, well, that company is, is running a line making 10 widgets per day with 5 people. Why is it that we're making 10 widgets a day with 12 people, right? So now you say, okay, I found that out. So what do? I need to make some changes because obviously I'm not as cost effective as they are. So that's external knowledge acquisition, right? Where you acquire knowledge from outside of the company. And you can get those from a number of places. Even the internet is one of those sources where you can get external acquisition of new knowledge. Integrating exploration and exploiting of learning processes. So you can just try new things in terms of integrating exploration. So you're trying new things, whereas exploitation of learning processes is where you're actually doing something and getting that incremental changes. So you're exploiting the learning process. Knowledge diffusion and application. By this, we're talking about sharing the knowledge inside of the company. So you're letting everybody know of the knowledge that you've gained, right? Not just inside the company. Sometimes you can even go outside, external, but you're diffusing knowledge. You're allowing other persons to acquire the knowledge and the application, right? And we come to learning organizations. As I said, I was asking at the beginning, who has heard of learning organizations? And this is the thing I want to put up in terms of learning organizations. So it says, all organizations learn things, but some do it much better than others, right? Some do it much better than others. The term learning organization has been used to describe organizations that learn rapidly and use the knowledge to become more effective in these organizations. It says the values of learning, innovation, experimentation, flexibility, and initiative are firmly embedded in the culture of the organization, right? So you want to set up a culture where people are quick to learn or want to learn, right? They're eager to learn. They're enthusiastic about learning, enthusiastic about innovation, enthusiastic about trying new things, experimentation. They're flexible. They have flexibility, right? They're not stuck in doing things one way all the time, but they're flexible. If you tell them to change, they will change because they're flexible, right? And initiatives are firmly embedded in that organization, right? That's a learning organization. And resources are invested in promoting learning. Knowledge is made easily available to anyone who needs it. and people are encouraged to apply it to their work. You guys know of any organization in Jamaica like that? I'm just asking.
Grace.
Where?
Probably Grace. Huh?
Yeah, you know, that came to mind. I'm not so sure how extensive it is, but yes, that organization came to mind. You know, I don't have to,
put them back.
I
Take
don't
them up
have
and put
to
them
proof
back.
of that, but I can only, I just think it's one of those organizations that does that, right? You finished early today. So guidelines for enhancing learning and innovation. These are the guidelines for enhancing learning and innovation. You need to recruit talented, creative people and empower them to be innovative, right? You empower them to be innovative. So they're thinkers, basically. They want to change things, come up with new ideas and new way of doing things, right? You want to encourage appreciation for flexibility and innovation. You're encouraging that. You encourage you encourage and facilitate learning by individuals and teams. So it's not just one person is learning, but it's an entire team or entire organization that is learning. So you want to encourage that. You want to help people to improve their mental models, right? How they think about things. You want to change that. You want to evaluate new ideas with small scale experiments. As we said, you want to try a big project one time and then fail. You want to try small projects, get success, and then, you know, go on to bigger projects, right? So you can show the success and show employees that things actually do work when they change. You want to leverage learning from surprises and failures. Leverage learning from surprises and failures. So even if somebody fails, you can say, yes, they failed. However, we're going to send them back to training, that kind of thing. And maybe it's a knowledge that they didn't have why they failed. So we're going to beef up training. We're going to probably bring in consultants, that kind of thing, to leverage your learning so you can learn from mistakes that you made while you were learning a new process or that kind of thing. You want to encourage and facilitate the sharing of knowledge and ideas. We said that before, right? And to do this, you can, like I say, news journals, newsletters, internet, you know, that kind of thing in any company. So you're facilitating and sharing knowledge. You want to preserve past learning and ensure continued use of relevant knowledge. So anything you learned from in the past, right? Make sure you preserve that. You don't just throw it out. It's important. It was a practice, and the things it made a difference in terms of the organization or the group. So you want to preserve that learning. You don't lose it. So by preserving that, so you can, some of that you can do is the person who went on that training, you make sure he stays with the company, that kind of thing, so he can impart that knowledge to other employees, right? You want to set innovation goals. Set goals. So some companies, especially tech companies, they have innovation goals where they will even reward staff for coming up with new innovations, right? But you set goals, so you can say, I wanna come up with 2 new ways of doing, I don't know, doing whatever it is, or making that particular chocolate, or whatever the case might be. You want to come up with 2 ideas, and you do that 2 ideas every 6 months or something like that. Just set a goal basically for your innovations. And you want to reward entrepreneurial behavior. You want to reward entrepreneurial behavior. You guys ever heard of the term intrapreneurial? It's a different word from entrepreneurial. Ever heard of it? No? So look it up. Look up intrapreneurial.
Yes,
Go on your
sir.
phone. Go on your phone and look up intrapreneurial and tell me what you get. Intrapreneurial. You ever heard of it? Somebody said they've heard of it?
What I see on the internet is saying acting like an entrepreneur basically when you're working for an organization.
Right, inside of that particular organization. Exactly. Exactly it. So yeah. So you want to reward that kind of behavior.
Yeah, but take it upon my foot.
Huh? Sorry?
No, don't play with that.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. So we've done our 3 chapters in good time, actually, and I hope everybody understood most of what was said. And what you didn't, you can, I'll be posting these slides on Classroom, so you can go back over it. I'm going to post them now, so you have enough time to go back over it because we're basically finished. I'll also post the assignment, right? And
Yes, sir.
so that you guys can have it and I can get it back in good time. You can probably, and you know what I encourage you to do? I encourage you to do the assignment now. All right, once I posted in Classroom, I encourage you to do the assignment now. Take the headache off because I'm going to be sending you the assignment for the group assignment this week. You know, because remember, we don't have a lot of time. We have 5 weeks. This is week 2. So you're talking about the group assignment coming up this week. You're probably going to get a week to deal with that or 2. And then your midterm exam or midterm test is coming up right after that. And then it's time for the final exam. So I encourage you. So what we're doing now is the time will be spent on doing the individual assignment. So I'm going to post it up on Classroom. So you guys can WhatsApp me and tell me if you see it or not. All
Sir.
right. Yes, go ahead.
Sir, question. If anybody else have any issue with the videos or so forth? The
Right.
recording?
Anybody else tried to get the recordings? Seems like nobody else tried to get onto it. But the slides are good enough.
I have a problem with Google Classroom overall. Not seeing. I have a problem with Google Classroom overall. I'm not seeing what is being posted.
Who is that? I'm not seeing you on the, who is saying that?
Gayan Thompson.
Oh, Gayan. Oh, you're not seeing, but everybody else is seeing it again. So maybe it's from your side. Gayan?
Okay, sir.
Maybe it's from your side. So let me post that now, guys, and you guys knock it off. I'm going to limit, and it should be typed. You guys know it has to be typed. That's something I don't even have to tell you guys again. I mean, it's just par for the course now, eh? So I'm going to set that up for you guys now. All right.
Sir,
all right. Yes, go ahead.
When I go into the classroom and I see the recording that you posted, recording 1 and 2, whatever it is, I'm not seeing an attachment.
Well, that's what Jerome was saying, but it should be there because that's what came to me, and all I did was copy it and paste it. All right, I'm gonna see. That's why I don't like Blackboard, and I'll tell you guys the truth. I really don't like Blackboard. I mean,
Sir, no, I know there's supposed to be an actual. It's supposed to look like a video link underneath.
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's what it should have been. Yes.
Sir, what I can do the recording is just sending to each of us emails, personal email.
I don't believe is the Blackboard which is causing this one. I do believe is the link. So I'm all right. I'm gonna try something. I'll see if I can get it to you. Right?
So just send the link to our emails.
However, don't let that stop you from doing your assignment, because if it were face to face, you would have no recording. You realize that, right? So that's not an excuse to not do the assignment. Yeah, just letting you know. All right, so I'm gonna post this assignment up now, and you guys can knock it off. No more than that's in no more than about 6 pages. So I'll put that limitation on the document now and post it. All right.
So remember to send the PowerPoints as well.
Yeah, I'll put them up. But this PowerPoint is going to be for this session today, which does not affect the assignment. Again, just to be clear, just clarifying, the assignment has to deal with last week's work. All right, but I will post them. Yes, I will post them.
And Jerome, when you see the recording 1 and 2, did you click it? Because mine came out.
Oh,
I
yes,
can't access it.
oh, thank you.
Yes, I clicked it, but I'm not
It
getting.
clicked it and then you see the link. Then the link
Right.
is shown and then it takes you to the recording.
Oh,
I
beautiful.
click it, I see it. I'm not seeing anything when I click it.
All right, who's sharing their screen? Hold on. Who said they saw it? Ingrid, that's you or no?
Georgia, sir.
Georgia, who? Yes, Georgia. All right.
Georgia.
All right, Georgia, I'm gonna make you share your screen. So you're a co-host. Share your screen with everybody and show them, please. Let me stop sharing and you share your screen.
Anna Jerome, you're seeing my screen?
Yeah, but I'm not seeing that any at all in mine.
Yes.
Right, so you see the blackboard right here?
Yeah, but I'm not. Yeah, but
Oh,
I'm not seeing
seeing
that.
that.
at all on mine.
Oh,
Not seeing that. That's new.
Well, I haven't done anything.
So it works for me as well. I'm seeing the same
right.
thing that, yeah, I'm seeing what
Mhm.
they're saying.
Kedar, can you send it to my email, please?
No, Jerome, I see what the
Yeah.
problem is, because we normally access it directly from the stream, but you have to actually go in the classroom section.
Right, the classroom, the classwork,
Classroom
I
section
think.
is
Yes,
on the classwork, it's on the
yes.
classwork and not the stream. It's
Oh,
posted as a classwork and not as a, right, that's a sir posted as a classwork and not under the stream itself.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right, okay.
oh.
Right, so that is where the problem was. It wasn't posted under the stream. Sir posted as an assignment.
Right. That I did.
Yes, sir, so that was what he says.
Thank you, Georgia.
No problem, sir.
All right, so look out for this thing. Give me a couple minutes for me to post it. All right. Okay, guys, any other queries, questions?
No, sir.
All right, great. Yeah, can you let the chat for me, please? Court laws here.